Did you sleep well last night?
Well, given the time change and the travel and all of that, pretty well.
Pretty well.
How about you?
Well, not bad, given the anxiety with respect to what it is that we're doing today, right? I mean, this isn't our usual thing, right?
Definitely not.
Definitely not.
Definitely not.
But what is usual is we could sit and we could essentially chew the fat forever, right?
Yes, we
Or,
could.
or at least...
Well, you could chew the lean. I would chew the fat.
Oh, no. We would both chew the fat, and you could go to the Mariners game, and I could applaud you for what it is that you're doing.
One day.
One day.
One day you will come with me.
Okay, one
Yeah,
day.
one day.
One day. Hey everyone, thank you for coming back. I'm here with my friend Nan, and we're talking story about this thing called origins. But if we weren't already in relationship with each other, if we didn't already have pilina, that interwoven relationship that a person might have with another, it wouldn't be possible to just sit and talk story about anything. Let alone this thing called origins. And origins do matter. They matter. So before we begin, I do want to make sure that I do this. I want to acknowledge all the people who are making this possible, including the people that I had a bit of a critical struggle with, right, in order to have this conversation. But the critical struggle is leaning into the notion of having this kind of conversation in plain sight with people it is that I have never met. And I want to acknowledge that that is something I'm not taking for granted at all. Now, it could very well be that when all's said and done, it's just you and me on this set, and there's actually nobody watching, and we won't know that for a while. But in the meantime, assuming that there are, I do want to acknowledge the viewers and the listeners who are taking this moment to be in this kind of reflection with us. And I would be remiss if I didn't start by thanking ancestors and teachers. Teachers who are still with us and teachers who have since passed. So, Nan, thank you for being here. Really
Happy to be
appreciate
here. Thank you for having me. I was thinking about why in the world would I do such a thing
Why in the world would you do such a thing?
as this? And because it would be more natural, I think, for you and I to be on a podcast, very short and quiet podcast called A Conversation Among Introverts.
Oh, okay.
But
Yes.
that will be for another day.
It would also be very short. It'd be very quiet.
Very short, very
yes.
quiet.
And we would hope for no viewers.
Exactly, and we probably would have none. But the truth is I was, this morning when I woke up, being on a different time zone, the sun was barely rising, and so I took myself out for a walk and made my way down to the water's edge. And I stood there remembering the stories that I've heard you and Na'alehu tell about your ancestors and how they believed that across the vast sea somewhere that there surely must be more land and more people, and that they would eventually set about going to find that, even not knowing for sure that it was there. And to me, this podcast and having this conversation is a little bit like that. We don't know exactly what will come of it, but we know that we have to go. And so at the top of episode 1, when you said, let's get to work, I thought, that's the call. Let's get to work. Let's do it. And, you know, I'm a team player, and this is my team. And so let's do it.
Well, you're a pretty good coach too, right? Not only a team player. I've noticed that over time. And even though I won't go to a baseball game with you,
Never say never.
well, okay. Up until this moment, I haven't gone to a baseball game with you. That I do take notice with respect to the deep observation that someone would have if they were to sit through something as long as America's pastime, right? Right, that whole notion of just watching everything open up and play out, and either come together or not, right? And you have to wait for it to come together. And I've noticed how it is that you are with people trying to see whether or not they will open up and come together, whether they'll even play, right? Whether they'll even come to something. And I think that that's why we had the instinct. Nan Stoops needs to be on this first part of the podcast as we're opening up, right?
If we could stop talking about me and talk about you. If I could offer an observation, speaking of those, that I've had of you, is that you have said more and more frequently recently that this is no time for the small game.
That's right. No time for the small game.
No time for that. And so my observation is that you have moved into the big game. You've written the 2 books. You're traveling globally to a worldwide audience. You're trying new things. You're making the leaps. And now here we have this podcast. You want to say a little bit more about why a podcast, why now, and what are you hoping for the listeners to engage with?
You know, my ancestors, in terms of ancestors, both on the Hakka side, on the Native Hawaiian side, and my ancestors who are Zen teachers. So if I look at those 3 sets of teachers, what I know about them is that the conversations that they would have with people would be consequential, but would be with the people who are right in front of them. Okay? I happen to have benefited from that. Right in front of them, sitting down in a room or outside on the grass or in the dojo or in the kitchen, around the table or not, you know, wherever it is that we are, you would be in relationship to all of the things literally, meaning you're hearing it and you're hearing it exactly from that person who heard it from another person in a very similar setting. And that is how it's been from time immemorial. Okay? And so for me, there was even like this great reluctance about writing the book, let alone the second book. But here's where all of that ended up in that decision, which is also about how this decision got made, about the podcast. And that is, if we are indeed in this accelerated collapse, in which all of the wisdom that is, by the way, not mine, right? But that which I am just bringing forward from observations of ancestors and teachers that I have had, and practicing it in the contemporary moment. Okay, that's all that I'm doing. So all of that, can it actually get transmitted to people quickly enough if people have to be directly in front of you? And my teacher actually worried about that before he passed, and now it's been some time since he passed. So he worried about it then. He passed the worry on to me. And I know that that conversation that we had before he passed, he had no idea that there would be this thing called, you know, podcasts and social media and all of that type of stuff, that there would be such acceleration.
Yeah.
But at that moment, he knew and he passed on the concern. And so then you have to live and work with the understanding of what do you do about that, right? What do you do about that? Do you say, well, this is how we've always done it, and that's how it's going to be, and only the people in front of you are going to be the ones that you transmit this to? Or do you take a chance? Right? Do you take a chance? Now, in my family, we have some gamblers, and I'm not one of those. So I didn't pick up the gambling gene, but I think I picked up the part of the gambling gene that has to do with when the time comes, you have to take the risk and you have to go. And I believe that that is what this is all about, right? Can't play small, right? And you and I have had that conversation, right, with people, right? You just can't play small. You have to take a risk that the people who are listening are the people who are intended to be listening. And there'll be some folks, who are going to try to move it into the places that will make sense and will not make sense. But I also have to have this faith, and I'm not a person of a lot of faith. I have to have the faith that anyone who is not bored by what it is that we're talking about today, Nan, are the right people to listen to it. And everyone else would be bored. And that would be the great filter, right? Yeah. The great sieve, the great colander that sorts out everything that it is.
Yeah. When you were talking about the gambling gene, of course, that kind of called into the science part of me. And it makes me think that everyone who is listening may not have a dominant gene, genetic predisposition to the conversation, but surely there is a recessive gene waiting to come to life.
Oh, okay.
And so that's what we're doing.
Oh, that's a very interesting way to think about it. Well, if that's the case, then evolution is on its way.
Yes, it is.
Let's take a quick break, and we'll be back still talking with Nan about origins and beginnings, and that part of origin and beginning that is source. Thank you so much.
What to do when no thing works. With wise and witty prose, Zen master and indigenous strategist Norma Wong reflects on this question and more in her acclaimed first book, When No Thing Works. Norma weaves poetry, storytelling, and meditation, inviting us to imagine a horizon of possibility beyond crisis. Hard copy and audiobook available now. Shop bookshop.com and support your local bookstore.
Welcome back, friends. As Norma mentioned, we're going to be talking about origins, and we could call this segment here The Life and Times of Norma Wong. So before we get into whatever origin story you want to tell today, would you say a little bit about why it's important to talk about origin, to know one's own origin story?
How will you know how it is that you got to where you are? I mean, that's a pretty simple thing, right? And it doesn't mean that everything in the past is a determinant for who it is that you are, what it is that you do today. Right? It's none of it is fated to be so. But there'd be so many things that can help fill in the explanation about, how it is that you come to be the person who it is that you are right now. It's also important to have this sense of origin that's not like solely tied to your one single life, okay? Which is a thing that I'm also cognizant of when I talk with people who have had their past ruptured in some way, right? Disconnected. So they might not even know like the exact place that they were born at, or they wouldn't know where exactly their parents came from, or even who their actual parents are, right? So there's all of that could be like a mystery. But to have an inquiry or curiosity, not about your specific ancestral line, but the things that occurred in the past and in the peoples who would have likely been there in that past, and where those people came from, what their migratory path might have been, the places that they lived, what was the conditions that they lived under, all of that. And what was the earth doing at that time? Right? Was it in the same tumultuous state as this is right now? So, when we ask the question, it's the weather is not normal. Well, when was normal? When would we peg that? Could be somebody's origin story. They could say, I remember that, in the last time that weather was normal was in the spring of, 1943 or whatever it might be, right? And say, well, you were born after that. And then you say, that's right, I was born after that. But that's what the story came down to me, that the spring of 1943 was when everything shifted. So it's like filling in the gaps of the potential lines of story that would end up with your current story.
Okay. What do you want the listeners to know about your origin story?
Oh, Nan, let's see. Well, we're going for G-rated, right?
Yeah.
Is that correct?
Just for today.
Just for today? Okay. And I know this is not radio, so technically we could say certain words, but we'll try not to do that because we're going to keep it G-rated.
If you cue me, I can, like beep or something.
Oh, okay. Okay. You could be the sound effect.
Yeah.
All right. Okay, we could do that. Let's see. Where shall we start? So I think we'll start with, lately, here's where I've been starting lately. Where I've been starting lately is a few weeks ago, I turned 70. Okay.
So great.
I think so.
So great.
I think so.
You look good for 70, by the way.
Well, thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you so much. I endeavored to wash my face this morning, so that helps, right? That helps. Get a little sleep. But how I'm going to look basically at a particular age is actually going to be less about me and about my genes, right? Not the ones you wear, but the ones that you're made of, right? And I would say, what I can say about my genes is that I have a number of ancestors who lived a long time. And therefore, in terms of how it is that I can face this particular moment, is that I was set up in the right direction for that. Okay, so not having much to do with much else than that. Okay, but what I can say about it is that given that, if I looked back at my life, I could say a lot has consequentially occurred in the one life that I have had. And it would begin with the fact that I have never lived anywhere else. Okay, this is my home. I've never called any other place my home. The short time that I might have lived away, and would be very short, would have been for a period maybe as long as 6 months when I was going to school on the East Coast. But I certainly didn't call that place home, with no disrespect for anybody for whom that is their home.
Sure.
That is not my home, right? But that this place would be my home would have a long origin associated with it, and that would have begun at a time that would have meant a time of migration, okay? Both on my Native Hawaiian side and on my Hakka Chinese side. Hakka Chinese who have come here in the 1870s to this place called Hawaii. And in that first few ships that came over, that they were all men, according to the contracts of the time, came to work in the plantations. And the intention was that they would return, and so they would not bring family with them. They would not bring women with them. They would just come to work in the fields. But many stayed, like my ancestors did. They stayed. And so if you do the math, and I know you're big into that, right? Math, right? So if you do the math.
I perked up.
You perked up. Yes, I noticed that. If you do the math, then if you say your ancestors came at that time, then you could not only be Hakka Chinese or Bunti Chinese or Cantonese Chinese. You would have to be a mixture of some other. And the other that blended so well for the Hakka Chinese were the Native Hawaiians. And for the Native Hawaiians, the other that blended so well were the Chinese.
Why do you think that was?
You know, I think that it was because they had common loves, common desires, right? They loved family and land. They all sought to have like a place where they could grow a few vegetables, take care of a few chickens. That they respected the ocean. Many of them were, either good fishermen or like my grandfather and his father before him were experts in terms of making nets. So both the crab nets as well as the throw nets, these huge nets that they would essentially carry over their shoulder, and they would wait patiently at the shoreline. And then they cast the net in a huge arc that would land like a large umbrella onto the ocean. And the notion is you would throw it in front of the fish in the direction they were moving to, not where the fish are, or you would miss them, right? And so that sense of observation, I would say, is not mine. It is genetic. It would be genetic in this sense. It's not that some people are born to be good fishermen or to be good farmers. It's that once having practiced that for the entirety of their life, it is now in their cellular memory. And in that cellular memory, they would pass that cellular memory on to descendants. So, there's this long strand, right? So they migrated here, but so did the Native Hawaiians, right? When they met up, they were meeting at a place that both had came to, one many more years before, right? So Native Hawaiians, about the year 400, essentially, is when they would come. And they would make this place home, right? The place that they migrated to, right? But, my life has straddled like these ways in which we would not know that history and then we would come upon that history. And if you're lucky, not only through the political lens, but through a lens that would be more about just the exploration of things. And I was fortunate that the conversations that I had would be with people who they would say they're not very well educated. And what they meant is that they hadn't gone to school very long. And what they meant is they could actually talk story. You know, if you wanted to know something, you would sit down and they would just tell you a long story. And if you sat long enough, you would learn the same long story. So, you know, my story is like a mixture of things that have occurred before me and about things that happened after I was born, and the consequential movement of people in Hawaii over this relatively short period of time, over 70 years, which I know is a matter of perspective. So if you're as a young person and you like haven't reached the age of 20 yet, you look and you go, 70 years, that's such a long time. Then of course I know, looking back, I could say it was both long and short. And that in this moment that we would consequentially come into a new way of thinking about this place called Hawaii, no longer just a possession of the United States, right? No longer just a strategic military outpost, but to look forward to a different kind of destiny of our own making. That would have been the kind of conversation that we've had when I was in my 20s and 30s.
And we can see how much that's informed by what you've said about how it is that your ancestors came together, what brought them together, the values, the experiences, the wantings that they shared. Yeah.
So I'm really aware that, you know, that I also apparently inherited, you know, like this whole notion of the long story.
Yeah.
Right. So I need a short break.
Okay.
Can we go ahead and take one?
We'll do that. We'll come back to more of the long story.
All right. We'll take a break and come back to long story. Thank you so much.
In her highly anticipated sequel, Who We Are Becoming Matters, Zen master and indigenous strategist Norma Wong asks, will you choose humanity? Poetic and practical, Norma explores who we can become and how we can evolve, not in spite of, but directly in response to crisis and challenge. Hard copy and audiobook available now. Shop bookshop.com and support your local bookstore.
Hello, friends. Thank you. Nan and I needed a short break, and we're back again. So Nan, you know, during the break, we're talking about like the kinds of things that you still have an interest in as far as how we came to be here.
Yeah. I mean, I think so much of why we're here does have to do with your own journey through your origin story. And so I know there's a lot you haven't told yet, and I wonder if you want to continue on with some of the, maybe speed up a little bit through time, and particularly around like perspectives that have been important to you, life experiences and so forth.
Okay, let me do that. I'm also aware that, you know, given this notion of origin, that and story. So if you look at origin and story, it's not important to tell the entire story at you know, at one time. And in fact, different parts of it may become available at different times and connect it to things that are happening right now. And that's when it'll bubble up. So, you know, we'll try not to take it as a linear thing, you know, like as in, okay, all the viewers
So
need
against
to know.
my nature.
Well, you know, but I believe that actually in both science and math, right, there is a whole part of that in nature, the spiral, right, is one of the essential forms, right, which means that there's that notion of things coming back to where they started from, right? I'm just testing that.
Point well taken.
Okay, all right.
There is usually a through line that pulls.
Okay, there's a through
But
line. There's a through
Anyway,
line.
that's another podcast.
Okay, all right. So, so let's take the through line. Okay, the through line. So the through line here would be that there would be moments in which I would begin to think about things differently, right? One of those moments is in my 20s and 30s when Hawaii was going through an entire Renaissance moment, revitalization of the native language, culture, music, a great blooming was going on. Politically, not only from the Native Hawaiian community, but the community that we would call the people who call this place home. And entire ways in which we were looking at issues. And I would benefit from that. I would be a minor player in it, but benefited from being in that environment, right, in my 20s and 30s. And I would count as being consequential is that would also be the same time that I would begin my practice in Zen Buddhism. And so my spiritual path and my political community path were not on separate courses. They were in courses that intermingled with each other, right? And I call myself very lucky, fortunate that that's the case, because I know that for many people, there's like a constrained container, right, of one or the other, right? And of course, we're having a consequential conversation right now, politically, right, about religion and politics. And here I would say that that's not what we're talking about here. Okay, what we're talking about here is the practice of a deep inquiry occurring at the same moment where you're being asked politically to be a deeply inquiring person. Okay? And so you're not imposing the values of one or the other. You're in the practice of making sure that if you're going to be making a decision or you're going to be in advising someone who's making a decision, or if you're going to be a policy wonk, which I was pretty big policy wonk. I still have some wonkiness.
Yes, you do.
I have some wonkiness here, which is another thing that binds us, right?
Perhaps.
A little bit of wonkiness, right? That is the, that you would do so not only with whatever is in front of you, but in inquiring deeper than that, inquiring to the source of issues, the roots of things, the causes of things, the impacts of your decisions, that you would know that every decision that gets made would have impacts. Okay. So, if I fast forward into this, skipping over large parts of my personal biography, I would say that a really significant moment for me would come relatively recently, and that would have been during the pandemic. Okay. Do you remember where you were when you went into quarantine?
Yes.
Where were you?
At home.
Okay. Well, that's good
Yeah.
because you're supposed to stay home,
Yes.
right? Okay.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And were your loved ones with you?
My son was in college. Fortunately, his senior year. No, actually, he had graduated. He got out just before.
Okay.
So, but nearby, and partner with me, dog with me.
Right. Yeah. So your small family, basically, you knew where they were.
Yes.
And you knew that you were going to basically go to ground, right?
Yes.
At that point.
Yes.
And you're still working at the coalition, right? At that time?
Yes.
Okay. And so did your organization shut down very quickly?
We went remote very quickly.
Very quickly. Okay, so you kept working, but you were all remote, basically.
Yes.
At that point.
Yes, and being a very community-oriented, communal kind of having a work style that was challenging.
Okay, all right. So our lives changed a lot.
Completely,
Right,
yeah.
completely. Everybody would have a story about that. And everybody would have a story about how you navigated, especially the first few months in which information was in such a disarray, right? And that would be the case. And I began to have a deep appreciation for the fact that it would not actually matter how much I focused, or anyone in Hawaii focused on Hawaii. That there would be things that would happen outside of Hawaii that would completely change our lives in the current moment and would completely change our trajectory going forward.
Yep.
And so that we could not just say, this is the place, these are the peoples that we're just going to focus on. And in some ways, discount, right? I mean, you might like, oh, okay, yes, we are a state in the United States, and so we're subject to federal laws and things like that, but, oh, we'll get an exception. Hawaii, by the way, had to get lots of exceptions for federal kinds of things because we're not typical,
Yeah.
right, of the geography or the ways in which we have to carry out things or the issues that our peoples have, right? And so we have to get lots of exceptions. But when you can get good at that, and the way you get good at that is you see the world happening separately from your world. And you go, if that is what they say is normal, we are extra special normal, and we're going to just carve ourselves out. And the pandemic really brought it home to me that you can only do so many carve-outs. And if that's what everybody was going to do, then we would be in the deepest of Kimchis,
Yeah.
okay? Which was not a comment.
People who don't eat kimchi.
Okay, well, it's not a comment on your cultural orientation. Okay, yeah. So people don't eat it. So we would be deep in a vat of fermented smelliness.
Okay.
Okay, all right? Which some people would love and some people would not, but in which we'd have to, we would not understand how it is we got there. And I could see us slipping into that during the pandemic. Every person for themselves. Every community trying to make it on their own. And I had to suspend my judgment about that because I had to understand, in lots of ways, very successfully, that's what we have done in Hawaii. That's exactly what we have done. And I had to stretch my notion of what my responsibility is, therefore.
Yeah.
And that's part of the origin of this rapid shift in thinking about what the consequences for all peoples might be if we do not wake up from that delusion, right? That all we have to do is take care of ourselves and we'll be fine. Yeah.
First episode, you talked about collapse, you and Na'Lehu, and the pandemic was a glimpse of collapse. Here we are again. Would you say a little bit about, again, about the collapse that we're currently in, how that is different from the pandemic, which I think all listeners could agree on kind of what that was. Maybe not as clear this time. And anything you want to connect again, through your perspectives, your origin, to the current collapse that we're in.
Okay. So I'm not a historian, but I've read up a little bit about things that have happened in human history. And I know that we have been in many crises before as humans, right? We certainly have been in more epidemics that, as a percentage of the population, were much more decimating than the pandemic is. I think what the pandemic did is it waked us up from the delusion of our superiority of modern times, that we would be able to hold those kinds of things at bay because of the discoveries that we have made as modern people. And I think that was like a startling thing that just like really woke us up in a particular way. Okay. But we've been through wars. We've been through all of those. What is different about this particular moment, I believe, is that we are in like overlapping crises.
Okay.
Okay. So of which no single thing is taking precedent, and what we're beginning to see with a lot more detail is how when you move to try to resolve one part of something, the impacts of that will just continue to radiate out, and some will be beneficial to some people, and much of it will not be beneficial to most people. And then it will have a cascading domino effect as it goes. And we're seeing that. We're seeing that. So, two leaders choose to make their move, basically, for causes that are about the security of their peoples and other peoples. And they choose to make a particular move. And the move that they make then puts many billions of people at risk. Okay. And when you take a look at that as it plays itself out, right? And you say, well, what is the origin, okay, of our not understanding that? That is something that is likely to happen. What is the origin of that? What is it about the human condition that would make us not understand the impacts that we would have on other peoples as we pursued our own survival, as we pursued our own success? So I think in a nutshell, if we could talk about nutshells, is that in a pretty big nutshell, this is the origin of this inquiry.
Okay.
Okay.
Yeah.
Friends, we're going to take one last break before we end this episode. I would invite you to think about the kind of inquiry you might want to make about the origin of how it is that you've arrived at this point where you're asking questions that you've never asked before. They may be different questions than I had, but that is worth thinking about, worth putting down. We'll be right back.
What to do when no thing works. With wise and witty prose, Zen master and indigenous strategist Norma Wong reflects on this question and more in her acclaimed first book, When No Thing Works. Norma weaves poetry, storytelling, and meditation, inviting us to imagine a horizon of possibility beyond crisis. Hard copy and audiobook available now. Shop bookshop.com and support your local bookstore.
Hello, friends. Welcome back. Nan and I have been talking about origins, and I hope that you will take a little bit of time to think about your origin as well. And in that, we're really talking about not us as individuals, but us collectively. So my story may be different than your story, but there is a part where we could essentially say that there's the story of our peoples and the story of our place and the story as it begins to unfold. Why would we even think about that? We think about that because we have a moment to think about that, and then we won't. And what do I mean by that? If everything is accelerating, if everyone is in the acceleration mode, then we could be quickly looking at a time when we won't be able to sit and reset and place ourselves in the arc of things in which we are tethered to our origins, and to understand that what we're doing right now will be the origin of some future peoples, some future places. And this is an important part of who it is that we are and who we are becoming. Origins matter, but they don't have to be determinative, which is to say, they don't have to be the exact reasons why we are what we are right now, let alone who are we going to become. So origins, more than determining, illuminate. They illuminate. They tell stories about peoples and places and reasons and motivations. And all of that is very important. We'll have parts of this origin story that will come into future episodes. But for now, we'll begin to shift what it is that we'll be in conversation about. And we're going to shift into what this quickly changing moment means. What is it that we're holding on to, and what is being stripped away, even as we speak, even as we pause to think about origins or anything else. And so in this next episode, among the things that we'll be covering will be that the many ways that have gotten us to this point, now history. It's to think about returning to that moment is folly, and we should set that aside. This will probably be the most controversial thing I've said so far, and a series that's going to enter into a number of controversial things, right? Nan's here, she knows part of the story, and so she knows that that will be the case. The notion that as we enter this moment, that it's not going to be possible for us to return to a moment before the chaos, and if we try to do that, that we will limit our possibilities, will be the subject matter of this next episode. So friends, thank you for being with us. Thank you for listening. Take a moment, take a breath, take a walk, and we'll see you soon. The Horizon Story podcast was produced by Sarah Demarest de Rivera and Bryson Ho, hosted and written by me, executive producer Naalehu Anthony, associate producer Scott Nine, featuring Nan Stoops. For Collective Acceleration, Kelly Miller. For OEV TV, Ken Sato, Wesley Kealoha, Courtney Leong, Jeff Lee, and Ivy Lagadlagad. For Pa'akai Communications, Jamila Silver, Diana Han, Pearl Tele, and Christine Matsuda. Hair and Makeup by Chris Jose. Mahalo to the place of my birth, ancestors, teachers, collaborators, and friends, Rosie Abraham for the support, and Taj James for the encouragement. The Horizon Story is brought to you by OEV TV. Copyright held by Collective Acceleration. Follow us on social at The Horizon Story. Questions to hello@thehorizonstory.com. Visit us where you find your favorite podcasts or at thehorizonstory.com.